Hey, you're gonna be at SBAT doing the March 15th, that is, right?
Yeah.
All right, and you spoke to Jill, or, if she's curious to know, I'll call her. All right.
I haven't spoken to Roman.
Okay. 3 minutes to go, of course, is when I'm calling everybody.
Hey, Pauline, hey, on my watch. I'm gonna be there at 4, but I'm wrapping up a meeting with Dr. Newman.
Okay, and you're okay to do all the introductions and so on, because Anita's
Yes,
not there.
ma'am.
All right, ma'am. See you there. All right, bye.
All right, bye.
Hi, Miss Vivian.
Hey Mildred, how you doing?
Stressed out. It's the truth.
What's new, right?
Even lie and say, "Oh, I'm okay." That'd be a lie.
Mm-hmm. I know. At least you're honest.
Hi, Kathy Fleming.
What's up, Mildred? Shearer. Is
Stressed
that how
out.
you say your
I'm
name?
stressed out.
How do you pronounce your last name? Shear?
Here,
Shear or Cher?
share.
Like the singer?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
No, I don't have, I'm accepted, I don't have.
Oh, I gotta make sure I don't multitask and get in trouble with Pauline, because I get in trouble when I multitask.
All right. Let's focus.
I know I'm going to try.
Okay, so we have 1 minute before we start.
Can you accept for me so I can log in?
Tyra, close my door, please. Close my door. Can you put that on mute? I need to get your headphones because I'm actually in a meeting.
But guys, we are recording and it's doing the transcript. In a minute, so it's 4 o'clock. Do we have anyone here who's not a committee member for public comment? Do we have anyone here who's not a committee member for public comment? Okay.
Oh, Mildred is in the meeting. I thought she was here. Oh, God.
I'm not going to multitask, Miss Pauline. I apologize for the other day. I'm not going to multitask, I promise.
All right, let me fix my speaker.
So we're recording now, guys.
Miss Pauline is upside down.
Oh, that's because my camera is sideways.
Oh.
God, it's been one of those days. Good
Trust
Lord.
me, I already know. Me too.
Sean, are you driving?
Let her get in trouble today.
You're muted. I didn't hear your excuse.
Oh no, I'm sitting at the BART station in El Cerrito waiting for my daughter to get here.
Okay.
Jay joined. Hey, Jay. People are still joining, so we'll give them a minute. Wow. Lots of people still coming in. I'm going to change my background.
Hey, Pauline. It's
Yeah?
Rebecca. It's
Hi,
Rebecca.
Rebecca.
I'm pretty sick, so I don't know if I'm going to make it through the
Oh,
meeting, but I'm. I'll see what I can do.
oh, okay. You sound like you've been. Do you have that flu that's going around that everybody is getting?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear. We give everybody a bit more time to get in before we start. Anybody else still coming in, Vivian, or do we have pretty much everybody?
A few people just joined. Should I call public comment one more time?
Yeah.
So if you're just now joining and you're not a committee member and you have public comments, please let me know. Okay, Pauline, we're ready.
All right. Thanks, Vivian. Hi, everybody. For SBAC this evening, our superintendent is not going to be able to join us. She's at another commitment. So it will be Jill, myself, and Samantha, and Emily will be presenting today. So we'll do the best we can. So next slide. So again, whenever we do our SBAC presentations, obviously our board is aligned and our board represents us all, and some board members are actually attending. So they're not on a committee to actually present. There's no committee for SBAC, so they take turns. So we'll always have the pleasure of having one of our board members in our meeting. Next slide. So staff, I mentioned that Jill, myself, and Sam and Emily will be hosting, but of course we're also joined by Kathy. I don't know if Philip is here. Chris sometimes joins us. Lena, not sure, but I will be here. Emily, Jill, and Sam. Next slide. So as a reminder, Jen is here. So Jen is our board member who's here today. So welcome, Jen. So as a reminder, we want your screen to be on at all times if possible. You should list your name and your group and the group that you're representing. And as a reminder, only SBAC voters SBAC voters and voting representatives and staff can engage in discussion. If you have a question, the protocol, we're asking you to raise your hand to speak. And then only SBAC voting members and participating staff can use the chat. And we're asking you to use the chat only when we're asking for specific or agenda topic tasks. And again, if you're not a member of the committee, if you're meeting members of the public, you're welcome to speak during public comments. And when we get to the point of voting, we're nowhere near, but when we get there, only SBAC representatives can vote.
Pauline, just a reminder for people, if you're not speaking at the moment, if you can make sure that you're muted so that we don't have a lot of background noise, that would be great. Thank you, everybody.
That's a good idea. Whoever we had like a wind tunnel effect going on, and no, that's gone.
I'm sorry, Pauline. Excuse me, Pauline, it's Vivian. Kathy, when I'm presenting and recording, I usually don't change screens, so I can't answer your message. So
who had a question?
No question. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, they want to know how to rename their screen. You cannot. Oh, let me look at. Oh, it has to be your Gmail name. That was a person who was asking how they could change your name, and Vicky responded in the chat. I think in Zoom you could just go in and change your names, right? So that's not the case. I think you can actually.
That's not the case with Google Meet. You have to change your name as it appears in the Google apps through the Google settings.
Okay. So we have some little codes. I think we've all seen this before. So how it actually works and what the buttons mean. So now we're on Google Meets and no longer Zoom, even though I understand some of you have requested Zoom accounts. Scandalous, because that's no longer helping our budget reductions. So That's just an aside. So, Jill, did you want to kind of take the next few slides just in terms of introductions, and then we'll turn it over to Sam to talk about the March 15th letters.
Sure, happy to. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for what I hope is a warm and dry space as I'm hearing the rain pound outside of my window here down at Parker Street. On the next slide, we always start our work just reminding everybody we're coming into the space representing different groups. And as members of the Superintendent's Budget Advisory Committee, our responsibilities are to review the budget and any procedures or specific items as requested. And there's been a lot of input coming from folks on this committee that staff has tried to respond to during these meetings, and we'll do that again at today's meeting. At some point in this process, in the not too distant future, you're going to provide written recommendations to the superintendent. We usually do that as we score proposals and take votes from members of this group. But as Pauline said, we're not yet at that stage. And then inviting you to help participate, provide public comment as we take these recommendations to the board. We do this work grounding in our district's mission, which is on the next slide. And our mission is to enable and inspire our diverse student body to achieve academic excellence and make positive contributions to the world. We know that excellence, equity, engagement, enrichment happens because we have a lot of committed, dedicated folks, both on staff and in our community, that have demonstrated time and time again that our student outcomes and student experiences are important. And we also know that in order for us to support all of these things, then we do need resources to make that happen. And resources in the form of dollars, resources in the form of personnel, and that as we are in this season, know that we are looking at a number of budget balancing solutions to get to a budget reduction target, which is not necessarily the happiest part of ensuring students can achieve academic excellence and make positive contributions to the world, but it is an important component for making that happen. On the next slide, you'll see our agenda for today. We're going to have Miss Vivian is going to take our roll call vote, or take roll call, not vote. And then Sam is here to give us an update on the March 15th notices. Pauline and Emily will share information about how we are moving toward the target and exploring some potential revenue generators, and then want to make sure that we get alignment around key data points and details, because part of your responsibility as SBAC members is then to take this information back to the various groups that you represent. So that communication cycle is really an important one, particularly in this time of budget balancing, particularly at this particular stage when we had the board voted on resolutions for potential layoffs. That's a very key word, because we want to make sure that we're giving accurate information and assuring folks that we have this process so that we can be transparent and solutions oriented. So on slide 9, as we head into our content for today, just a reminder that we have been sharing that we are in stormy weather, both literally and figuratively today. And while stormy weather isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? The rain nourishes the earth and brings us flowers and fruits and vegetables and all sorts of important things. But we need to be prepared as we head into stormy weather. Umbrellas are needed today, and good decision making and collective and shared decision making is an important part of this budgeting process. We do know that we have some budget balancing solutions that we've been exploring. Do want to acknowledge and appreciate the work that this group has done to provide input and feedback and to ask really good questions. We are at the stage where we're starting to focus really on what and not necessarily the how. There have been some examples that have come up in terms of like, oh, we can't lay off insert name of particular group here. And that might be true, but in a budget balancing stage, and as Anikia and Pauline have reminded us, about 85% of our budget is staffing. And when we've already had to make a $7.8 million budget reduction, and now we're in a stage where we're having to do that again, while we've been able to not necessarily have the felt experience of what potential staff reductions might look like, it's a reality for where we are at this stage in the game. Although, again, we have not made any of those decisions, and we're exploring all options before we have to make any of those decisions. So again, appreciate your support and engagement in this process, and thank you for being here today. So Ms. Vivian, I think I'm going to hand it over to you for roll call.
Okay, so PTA members? Do we have any PTA? P&O?
Yes, sorry. Yes, PTA is here. I just couldn't unmute. Sorry.
P&O?
Nicole Chabot is here.
PAC?
Oh, we also have a Vicky. Vicky Davis is here also for P&O.
PAC?
PAC's present.
DLAC? Hilda, did I just see you log in? No? No DLAC? Dan Lindheim?
I see Hilda is in the.
Yeah, I thought I saw Hilda too, so I'll mark her here.
I'm here.
Thank you, Dan. Berkeley High School Development? Berkeley High School Development. Gayshak?
Here, it's Rebecca.
Thank you. Natasha Beery.
She's coming soon, but I'm here in her stead.
Okay. Beatrice?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Mildred Shear, BCCE?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here. Thank you.
Sean Jackson?
I'm here.
Yazid?
I'm here.
Frank?
I'm here.
Matt?
I'm here.
Regina?
Here.
Lisa? Stephen?
Here.
Renee Molina? Jules?
I'm here for Renee.
Okay. Who is Doreen?
Doreen.
Okay. Jules, are you here? And then we have district staff. Kathy, I know you're here. Jill's here. Pauline. Anika's not here. Trish, are you here? Samantha Tobias. Debbie Dean? No? Emily?
Here.
Director Shanowski? And Director Korn?
I'm here.
Okay, that completes roll call. Thank you.
All right, Vivian, if you'll go to the next slide, I will talk about the hardest part of all of this. So reduction in force update, March 15th notices. Those of you who watched the board meeting or listened to it after know that we did take layoff notices or March 15th notices to the board at this last board meeting a week ago. Next slide. After we took it to the board, there has been an article published in Berkeley side, as well as there's an email that was put out by the superintendent to all of our employees about layoffs and what this all means. And next slide. So there are three major parts to our March 15th resolutions, or the things that the board approved. There are classified eliminations and reductions, certificated potential reassignments, and particular kinds of service which is also a certificated realm. I have attached here the 3 different 2 resolutions and a list of the reassignment positions that got notices. This year, our notices cover all 4 unions plus our unrepresented staff. For classified staff, there are 182 notices that are going out. For certificated, it's 191. Currently, the next step is hearings. Every person has gotten a letter that explains that they have hearing rights and they have to respond to us if they want a hearing. Hearings will be held in April. There will also be decisions, possible rescissions, and possible final notices coming up in the future months. We have about 2 months before final notices, which have to be issued by May 14th. So again, these are our potential layoff notices, but that's a little of the data and the information about what they are, and the actual resolutions are attached. And I believe, Pauline, it's yours next.
Yeah, I think Sam, some questions that I've gotten is that they saw a lot of notices that went to the board for the classified, but we also had, as you shared, there were an equal number of notices that went to certificated. Can you remind everybody why some went on the resolution and then some were done a little differently?
Yes. So part of it is Ed Code and what Ed Code requires. So the classified reductions are of positions, not people. And so even though it impacts people, and so those go out in public. Same with the particular kinds of service. That again is about credential areas or areas of service like positions in the certificated world that we are looking at reducing. Again, not people, but positions. And so both of those went to the open session on the consent calendar or consent agenda of the board meeting. The certificated potential reassignments, there are administrators as well as there are TSAs, teachers on special assignment, as well as counselors who are getting those notices. 2 of those, the TSAs and the counselors, did not require the board to take any action at this point. And for the administrators, which included directors and executive director and vice principals and coordinators and multiple positions, those did take, the board did take action in closed session on those because it is it actually impacts the individuals, not just the positions. So that would be the difference between those. Yes, Vicky.
Yes. Tell me if we're going to get to this later, but so I see that you've linked to the lists of the pink slips, which I looked at from the board notes, and we've over the last 2 meetings alluded to about $750K worth of cuts that staff was recommending, but was not disclosed. I was assuming because these notices have not gone out. So I'm wondering if we're actually going to discuss any of these positions, because again, that's like 350, almost 400 notices, but we're not actually thinking about cutting all these people. It's people on soft money. So in what areas are we actually having discussions of potential layoffs or cuts? And if this is not the meeting we're talking about that, when is that meeting?
So I believe that we will be talking about it at the next SBAC meeting. We were working on collecting more information and details to be able to share and be able to have a good discussion around that. So I believe, Pauline, that's correct. We're coming back with that
Right.
information. Yeah.
Right. So thanks for raising that, Vicky, because as a reminder, in phase 1, we had for central office, we had $749,000 in positions. And at the school sites, we had $161,500 for a total of $910,000 in positions. And at this time, some of these positions are actually filled. Some of them are vacant. We didn't want to take them piecemeal. We want to make sure full notification was done, including speaking to the groups to make sure they have spoken to the groups that are impacted. So we expect we will have this information at the next meeting, and Cabinet is actually working through this list to make sure everybody has received the proper notification before we actually share it in public. So thanks for raising that. Okay.
I have a follow-up question. Is there a deadline for people to request hearings?
Yes. So for the certificated staff, they have 7 days from when they receive the notice to request a hearing. And for classified, it's 12 days.
Okay, so I mean, in that case, then people who receive pink slips who don't know whether their job is actually potentially at risk or not would have to request a hearing prior to any discussions that we're having on which positions we might actually cut, correct?
Correct. And the hearings, just to be clarifying, the hearings are not about whether or not the position should be cut. The hearings are about whether or not that person was selected correctly based on seniority and the credentialing area.
Okay. Okay. Understood. Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions? I can't see if anybody has raised their hands.
Matt.
And guys, we're encouraging. Oh, Beatrice. Yes, Beatrice.
Yeah, it's just out of curiosity because there's a number of people that also retired during the school year. So that's also the other moving place. Those people who are getting notices might be applying for those other positions that become open, or that we might be closing those positions.
Correct. So yeah, we have attrition. We have attrition through retirements, resignations, and people who are on short-term or what are called temporary contracts. And so we do have attrition through that, and so it can either open up new vacancies or help us to eliminate positions through that process after they become vacant.
And guys, I know we tend to hear from the usual 5 or 6 people. I'm encouraging everybody to participate, and possibly we can start splitting out in groups and getting group discussions going, because it's important that it's a collaborative effort and that everybody's playing a part. So that's just my 2 cents on working together. Not that we don't mind hearing from Vicky and the usual suspects, but we want to hear from everybody. Vicky, that's no dig at you. That's just saying everybody should be like Vicky, right? Thanks, Vicky. All right, next slide.
Matt had his hand up.
Oh, Matt did? I can't see.
No,
Sorry, Matt.
I'm good. Thank you for calling on me, but I'm fine. Thanks.
Okay, guys, so back to our budget balancing. Sam, thanks for explaining the March 15th letters. It's a painful but necessary process. And people have started receiving emails from Human Resources, and they've also mailed out the letters, so they should be receiving them. Hopefully it's not a shock to anybody, because there should have been some discussion from managers with impacted folks. But just in case, some people weren't aware of the bumping process, and some staff may have gotten noticed inadvertent, or they didn't get any heads up notice. There is a list of all employees impacted that Sam has shared with supervisors. Is that correct, Sam? Or
yeah, with our administrators and managers, so that they're aware of what positions have been notified. We aren't releasing that publicly because we do want to provide some semblance of confidentiality for people, but also because of the fact that not everybody has received their email or their letter in the mail yet. And so we do want to preserve that. But yes, we do have a list that has been shared so that management level positions do know who has been notified or is going to be.
Thanks, Sam. It's a lot of work and a lot of people getting noticed.
Yeah, my team has been rocking it and they are doing wonderful. It's unfortunate that we have to go through this process, but I also appreciate all the hard work being put in by my team as well as the Personnel Commission who supports us through the classified process.
Okay. Thanks, Sam. Okay, so now we're turning our attention to the target. So again, we are doing this important work and being grounded in our core values of resource allocation, which we've shared with you on several occasions. And then we're also listing how we're going to try and move towards the target. We've used several of these strategies in the past. We've evaluated, we've moved vacant positions. We're looking at truing up program costs. We're also looking at additional revenue, which is probably not on this slide, but that's an approach we're using. And we just want to make sure that everybody's aware of where we are in moving towards the target and letting you know ideas that we're having and discussions we'd like to have to add additional budget balancing solutions. So it's important that we all understand the process, that we understand the core value of our resource allocation, and just to make sure we're all on the same page as we do this important work. Next slide. Next slide. I don't know all of the touch. This is all the this is very concrete information. So we've done 2 phases of budget balancing solutions. We're up to 3.9 or approximately $4 million in budget balancing solutions. In the previous slides, in phase 1, we had identified that we had $1.560 million in suggestions. And then when we looked at it closer, we realized that not all of that applied to the unrestricted general fund. So of the $1.6 million, 1.3 million or 1.291 actually applied to the general fund. And as Vicky mentioned, and as we discussed earlier, $910,000 of that proposal in phase 1 had to do with consolidating and removing positions. And we will be bringing that back to you just in terms of listing actual positions that are under consideration. So this is the list of the different things that we have done. In phase 1, like I mentioned, we did the 1.3 million. And then in phase 2, this is when we're actually working with the various programs in terms of looking at we're actually truing up our ADA, our enrollment, the impact of our teacher template, and the impact on our actual ADA and LCFF funding. So that effort actually yielded us a total of phase 2 gave us 2.76 million. And that is actually going to be, it's going to be added as a budget balancing solution, even though it's going to be part of the normal budget adoption process. Emily and myself, when we're adopting the budget, we have to look at the revised enrollment and ED. We have to do a new teacher template, and we have to recognize the impact of increased teachers. So what we propose is going to help us towards a target, but it's the steps that we would take as we're building the budget. And good news that Kathy shared with us and the P&O in the teacher template, they're buying down the class size from 36 to 1, which is definitely assisting the general fund in this difficult time. So kudos to P&O and BSEP. We totally appreciate that accommodation for the general fund. Any comments before I move on? Hearing none. Remember, all of this was shared at a previous meeting, and you can go back and look at the slides. So of the $7.8 million, we found almost 4. So we still have a lot of a heavy lift in front of us, but we're looking at data. We're going to be working closer with groups. We're going to be asking for input. But at this time, we have very little movement in phase 3, and we want to bring back phase 3 when we have some more significant offerings. Next slide. Did I hear somebody raise? Nicole. Yes, Nicole.
Thanks so much, Pauline. I should have said this earlier. I just wanted to make a quick comment on the P&O shift there for the teacher template. So, we know this is something that happens between BSEP funds and the general fund, and it's happened several times in the past. Kind of the shift in the teacher template, and the P&O absolutely understands that this is a really difficult situation for the general fund and for a lot of school districts in our neighborhood here. So there's no question about that. It was almost a unanimous vote, not entirely, but almost. But the one thing I just do want to highlight is that we're at the very beginning of the new measure, and with the crystal ball financial planning that we can do at this point towards the end of the measure, when we get into the later years, the BSEP funding does get in trouble. So the anticipation, the discussion that we had as P&O was to say that in the coming years, once, we get our budget balancing in better shape and we understand how this goes over the next couple of years, that the BSEP funding is looking for that teacher template to shift back in place so that it can finish out the terms of the measure as originally voted and planned. So I just say that for now. And I know that we're talking, it's an 8-year measure, so it's a long time, but we appreciate the partnership with the district, and anybody who's still here 6 years from now, 5 years from now, let's talk 4 years from now.
Emily over here.
Fantastic.
So thanks a lot, Nicole. That's important. And we use this, we had implemented this before when I think is Natasha with us? But anyway, we had done that before. We had gone to 36 and then we reevaluated. And I think 2 years ago, Kathy or Nicole, we went back to 34 to 1. So we really appreciate P&O and BSEP's partnership in terms of reevaluating this and giving us a benefit of going to 30, buying us down from 36 to 1. So again, lots of appreciation there. Next slide. So do we have anybody else? And I'm going to start calling on people as opposed to I'm going to do the teacher thing, even though I've never been a teacher. I haven't heard from anybody from BCCE, so I'd like to hear from Mildred and Yazid and Frank and Sean, just to get your input in terms of the layoff notices, in terms of our budget balancing solutions, just to get some sort of discussion going, and your input or your ideas. Can we start with you, Frank? Is Frank even with us? Have we lost Frank?
I think he's here. I apologize. I got a phone call and I heard my name and I apologize. What was the question?
Oh, stop it. So, we just wanted to get your feedback, and I'm just calling on BCCE folks because you guys, we never hear from you guys. We hear from BFD, we hear from other, and then Steve, we're gonna call on Steve as well. And who's here from Yuba? Is anybody here from Yuba?
Doreen.
Renee's here. Doreen.
I'm here.
All right. So let's get some discussion going, guys. Just to hear some voices and some feedback. And Hannah has raised her hand.
I was just curious. I saw there's a lot of other slides in the deck. Are we going to be able to discuss some of the other media?
We have a lot. Yeah, we will.
Okay.
But I do want to get this discussion going first, and then we'll get back to the slides, Hannah, if that's okay. All right. Thank you. Yazid?
Yes, there was an idea that was brought up. Actually, it wasn't my idea, but I kind of like the idea that, for example, down in transportation, we have like a hard to fill positions, and we were thinking maybe we can train the people we may lay off and train them to take these positions. For example, if we can get to train for bus drivers. We're very short on bus drivers. I'm sure many of these people that are going to be laid off, they have a license, and we can start them from scratch and train them to be bus drivers, for example, or maybe train them to be something else. That was the idea that was brought up.
So Yazid, that would be a perfect point when we're coming to like solicit ideas for other suggestions, but I just wanted reactions to what we have already presented. So we talked about the March 15th layoff notices, which talked about the 4 million. We haven't heard a lot from anybody as we're going from these guys as we're going through this process. So that's what I was hoping I could get some input on before moving on to the next section. Any comments? Guys, don't all speak at once. Renee, do you have anything, any input?
I mean, I just walked in. I'm sorry. I just came late from our staff meeting. So,
Doreen, Matt?
Waiting my turn.
No, well, I mean, nobody else seems to be in a hurry to say anything, Matt, so go ahead.
I'll just say this seems like my reaction is it's a very like blunt tool where, you know, with this many people getting layoff notices, it's very unclear, as Vicky had mentioned earlier, what's real and what's not real. We have had very little discussion around positions in this room. And it's hard for me to even articulate it to my members. You know, what's on soft money, what isn't, what's actually being considered, what's not actually being considered. And because we haven't really engaged in that conversation, which I feel like we could have, everyone, all 200 and some 300 people that have these pink slips, they're going to be looking for other jobs. And I was just talking to an after school person this afternoon, you know, and I talked to a vice principal today too, who is actively looking for other jobs. And whereas the district may have no intention of actually laying off some of these positions. So I think it is in the district's best interest, my reaction, to rescind these layoffs as fast as possible, especially in areas where there are known things, right? And in the areas that they're not, then, you know, it might take a little bit longer, but there's no way that our district is going to be 300 people less on a $7 million budget cut that half of it's already been made up for. So it just doesn't make any logical sense.
Correct. Okay, we'll document that. Thanks, Matt. Mildred, Sean, and one more. Oh, great. So we're having a little bit of questions, reactions before we move on. Mildred,
I know you want some feedback, right?
Yes.
You want some feedback. I was trying not to say anything because I'm trying not to. But I've already said some things that I said at the meeting, at the board meeting last week, and I'm going to stay true to what I said last week. We've been getting phone calls all day today and yesterday from members. I'm hoping that we are able to come together, you know, in a timely manner to release some stress from our members, so everybody's not stressed out. And like Matt said, so people don't start looking for other jobs, because in the meantime, we're going to lose very valuable employees. because they're going to think that they don't have a job or they may be out of a job. So I'm hoping that we can make some things happen sooner than later. Because it's a very stressful time. And then I do know that there are other ways and other things that we can do to get money or to look for money other than laying off people. So I hope we look at other avenues and so maybe look at other suggestions that I made at the board meeting than laying people off.
Okay, thanks, Miller. And that's why we're here, to work together.
Yes, ma'am.
And we're letting everyone know that we always do these budget balancing solutions in tiers. So the last absolute tier will be affecting positions, and then also furloughs, which we'll be talking about as we go along. So thanks for engaging and thanks for the feedback. Sean?
So my biggest question is that, with this amount of layoffs, like, where is this work going? When you have, 180 or over 180 BCCE members getting laid off, who's will be doing that work? And with the amount of contractors that we have, I would hope that they wouldn't be picking up that work when we're laying off our members.
Right. So as I think Sam explained, not everybody that's getting a letter will actually get laid off. And I think that's Matt's point as well. We need to hone in on the people that we think are actually going to be getting laid off, so people don't start looking for other jobs and going other places. So that's our responsibility, and we will be bringing back what we have on the list so far. But we do need to come up with other suggestions as well. Obviously, we're not laying. I mean, there are 300. How many people got letters? I mean, we can't lose all of those positions clearly, because that would be a lot more than $7 million, right? So we do want to make sure that we are mindful and we send notices as soon as we can. Sean, is your hand still raised?
Nope, sorry about that.
Oh, Rebecca, if you can speak, Rebecca, did you want to text instead?
I'm gonna try. Forgive me if I missed this part, but I'm curious about Sean's noticing just now, which was about contractors, and how does that, I don't know how this part works, Pauline, but like I can imagine we might want to say, BUSD isn't doing contractors anymore until we have resolved that all the people who have positions have been that's been figured out. Like, how does that work? Can you explain it to me, or Samantha, can you explain it? Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. So a piece of it is that we have timelines within contracts that we would have to follow in order to rescind contracts at this moment. Most of them are more than 30 days notice. And we are working towards reducing the number of contractors we have. We were very careful that none of the positions that we have noticed are contractors. And so we don't have, like, our main contractors in the classified world are in special ed assistants and in instructional technicians, which we did not notice either of those groups. And so we're very careful with that piece. We do agree with the unions as well as everybody else in terms of looking at those contracts and reducing them. It's also not an all or nothing, because a lot of these are serving our special ed students, and these are written into IEPs in terms of the services, and we do not have the people to hire at the moment to be able to backfill those positions at this very moment. We're working towards that and continuing to do that. But if we were to reduce it, we would end up with comp claims and lawsuits and other things if we were to try to cancel the contract right now. But we are looking at that definitely as a part of this process.
Okay, anybody else with questions before we move on? Is that Renee?
Yeah, I was just going to share it. I mean, I know it's really challenging. I know you all know all of what I'm probably already going to say. Is just basically that it's as an administrator and that not knowing all these different things makes it really hard to plan for the following school year. And so that's something that we're all struggling with and trying to figure out how best to support our students and our families. And then just thinking about stability wise, like it's really when we don't know who's going to be the administrator that's going to be there next year, and or staff that we're going to have next year. It's just hard to get a team together when there's all this uncertainty. And so I just wanted to say that out loud.
Okay, thanks for sharing. All right, well, thanks for the conversation, for the input. Appreciate it. We will be getting back to you, like I said, with the people who we know are in that 900 or the positions that are in the 910. And as Sam says, there's also a process for rescinding layoffs. So lots of work ahead of us, but we will be sharing the outcomes as we get updated information. Next slide. So when we're talking about revenue, exploring balancing proposals and revenue generators, next slide. We're looking at the transportation department again, Sean, your world and Yazid's world. So this is Sheila and the team and her team looking at their costs and trying to determine, okay, then how can they right size some of their offerings that they currently have? So they're looking at their field trips and their field trip rates. So let's go to the next slide. So this was actually a little table that Sheila had shared with me, and I had shared it earlier we were thinking of taking this to the board actually this year, but we postponed it for next year. So we're looking at the round trip rates that that the transportation department currently offers, as also how they cost for out of town rates. So they're currently charging 200 and okay, sure, Nicole. They're charging $255 for a round trip, and they're proposing a 59.6% increase, which is a significant increase. But their rate will be $400 per round trip, but that would make them competitive to other districts. For instance, Fremont charges $500 to $900 per round trip. So 400 is still less than Fremont, and based on Sheila's and her team's evaluation, $400 per round trip is reasonable. And then when looking at the out-of-town rates, they're proposing about a 42.8 or 43% increase to make them competitive. Pittsburgh has a rate that's a little bit less than they're charging, but then they're doing a little bit higher for the cost per mile. So with both of these proposals, and I think the last time, I don't remember the last time they did an increase, but Sheila shared with me it was some time ago. So with these increases on the next slide, looking at revenue, next slide. Right. So when we look at what we're the revenue from field trips right now, and this is 23-24, we collect revenue from external sources. These are people that are calling in and using our buses that are not BUSC staff. We're only clearing 68,622, and our internal charges, which are charges from either people within our fund or in other funds, for either in-town or out-of-town trips. We're just looking at it from the general ledger, and we're collecting $62,000 a year. So a lot of factors. I know the bus drivers would like to do more trips, but the first priority is home to school and trying to find the additional. Sean, you may want to speak to this actually. But I understand the challenge is trying to find additional drivers to do the trips. Vicky, if Sean can respond, and then I'll take questions after.
Yeah, that's exactly what the problem is that we don't have extra drivers. With absenteeism involved in that, and I'm not saying that it's, over absenteeism, but just regular call outs, it uses our subs, so we don't have additional drivers to do field trips because we're doing home to school.
Okay. So looking at this again, we're only earning $130,000. If we increase the rate, we'll probably get another $60,000. But hopefully, when our schedule frees up, we can do more trips and earn more at the higher rate. And again, this is a proposal that we're only looking at $60,000, but every bit helps. And again, I thank transportation for taking a deeper dive and looking at this information. I think Vicky, Rita, and one more person have raised their hands. So Vicky?
So I'm not going to comment specifically about whether this is a good or bad idea. I mean, yes, every penny helps, but I have an overall concern that we're being penny wise, pound foolish, in that we're finding things that are generating small amounts of money instead of looking at large, big swings that we could potentially take. And I feel like already it's difficult for teachers to book buses for field trips, and that's really then charging parents $10 for the bus, and or the PTAs are giving money to the classrooms so they can do buses, and often they're already getting charter buses because they have TVs, they're air conditioned, the seats are cushy, and it's, I mean, I know in this comparison it said it wasn't that big of a difference, but particularly for out of town trips, our teachers have reported to our PTA that the charter buses are equivalent in cost and much nicer and easier to do. So I would just say that let's look at bigger things than these small amounts. And there's openings. We don't have bus drivers to do these trips. It's difficult to fill that position. I don't know how this is going to make us any real money. Anyways, thank you.
I don't think the intention was really to make us real money. The intention was they are intending to raise the rates to make them competitive, and this is the impact. Because the rates
but
have
it's like
not been
competitive to charging ourselves. It's like we're not charging outside people, we're charging ourselves, we're charging our parents, we're charging our PTAs.
That's incorrect. We're also charging everybody that hires our buses for field trips. So on the slide, I said revenue collected from external sources. These are people outside of the district that call up transportation and rent our buses for one reason or another.
Okay.
And then there are also the internal charges are the district folks. So we're hoping that people will use our buses to generate more income internally. But this is actually an impact of us wanting to right size the field trip rates. And oh, by the way, we can earn some money. So that's the approach for it. It's not that we're kind of like, oh, let's find things. This is something that the transportation department wants to do, and this is the impact. Rita and then Sean. Did that answer your question, Vicky? All right. Rita and then Sean.
I think that what I'm going to say kind of just builds on what Vicky's saying. I totally see being equivalent in charging what you want to charge to external contracts for buses. Like that's, be competitive with the other school districts. However, if you increase the cost for field trips within Berkeley, our PTAs are already funding $2.5 million a year. I'm not sure. I mean, I think it'll just be shuffling that money around from something else, or there'll be fewer field trips done by, theoretically we can fundraise more, but not by much, right? At least that's the sense that I'm getting from our overtaxed PTA parents. So, I'm agreeing with Vicky. Like, it's not a whole lot of money, and it's going to make it harder for PTAs to help fundraise field trips if it's going to cost more.
But didn't Vicky say that they're paying the same thing for cushy buses? Isn't that what you said?
I don't know. I'm only involved at 2 different schools. I don't know how all the schools are doing it. Certainly a conversation we could have at our PTA council meeting. The superintendent's coming to that this month, so maybe that is something to discuss. But at our schools, it mostly is our school buses when we use them, and it's also walking to BART and things like that. But, you know, again, if you're saying, oh, well, we need to go, you know, the fifth grade's going to that Jumpstart program up in the Redwoods at I can't remember what it's called now. You know, if you're saying that's going to cost more, well, that's money that'll be taken away from other things that PTAs fundraise for, which is a lot of garden and, you know, other kind of supports throughout the school. So that's.
I'll just add, we always try to hire internally before we hire externally, and it's only when buses aren't available that we use the other buses.
Okay, thank you, Sean, and then Mildred, and then we have to go to the next section.
Yeah, so I just kind of wanted to clarify, Pauline. I mean, I don't know if I'm wrong, but we were thinking of increasing the rate just to match the driver rate. It wasn't to be competitive with other outside companies, because I see that this slide right here is from 23-24, and we haven't actually done any transportation for any outside school districts or anything in the last 2 years. We only transport BUSD students at this time. So the rate that but the district pays the drivers wasn't comparable for what we were charging. So that was kind of putting us in the red and the negative every time we did a field trip. So that was Sheila's way of just trying to make it, you know, just come out even Steven.
Oh, okay. Okay, that
so
makes
we're
more
not
sense.
gaining any revenue from that. We're just coming out equal. Yes.
Right, that makes sense. So the revenue, I may have misspoke about the revenue being collected, but Sheila gives us actual checks. And when I spoke to her, I understood that was from outside agencies, but wherever the source is, we do want to increase the rates to the ones that Sheila proposed on the previous so this is something that I think we're going to be doing and getting board approval to do. And by the way, it's going to be $60,000. So somebody else had their hand raised before Beatrice. Did somebody else have their hand raised?
I did, Miss Pauline, but I think Sean actually answered it because I was actually wondering if she had an additional idea regarding this revenue generations for transportation.
Well, actually, you know, Pauline, there is an idea that I had, but I would really like to speak with you, you know, and just kind of give you what my idea is. And if it's something that it could work, then you can bring it to the committee. But I'd like to talk to you privately about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Sounds good. All right. And then Beatrice, you had your hand raised, and then we're going to go to the last speaker.
No, I was just wondering if how many of these field trips that we're taking this year, planned this year, if you were to ask them, if the price goes up, would you cancel or would you continue? So I think it's worth knowing it's going to be, people might back out of it.
Yeah, which I think Vicky mentioned. Right. Okay, well, this is the only thing that we had so far. And this was, like I said, something that the transportation department wanted to implement mid-year, decided to defer it, but because it's somewhat of a revenue generator, it came to this meeting just for feedback and for information. And Sean, I'll be happy to talk to you about any other ideas. Transportation always has ideas. Thank you so much. So appreciate it. All right, next slide. So we had actually got some information, proposals were sent to us, and this came from various folks on the committee. We're going to give each person probably a few minutes just to discuss what they had shared with us. We've asked you guys to send us emails either to us, Vivian, or anybody on any staff person in terms of what they were thinking. So possible revenue generators, we got a proposal to close Oxford, possibly, and use the campus to consolidate. And then another one was to consolidate preschools. So did you guys want to talk about it with the group, or is that something you're not prepared to discuss at this time? Was that Nicole, and who actually, whose email was it?
Sure.
Nicole, do
Vicky,
you want to
talk, or do
start?
you want me?
We can both talk. So these were again just things that we wanted to explore. But the thought was, for example, with Oxford campus, I know closing a school site is hard and it's a big deal. However, our district is about 10% lower in the number of students that we currently have. We had slightly over 10,000. Now we're slightly over 9,000. So that's 1,000 students. And in the foreseeable future, I don't know that it's going to increase. Oxford is our smallest school with 250-ish students. And they don't have a home school anymore. They're at the Bonar site because their site was closed. And the thought is it could be a one-time swing where we move students, but we could also transition this in. And like, for example, starting next year, don't give them a new kindergarten class, have those students be split among other schools in the district. But if they have 10 to 12 classrooms, I feel like there are schools that can increase the 10 to 12 classrooms. We wouldn't actually be laying off that many staff or teachers because those teachers would move to new sites with their classes. A lot of the special ed and support staff would move to new sites. So we didn't know how much money it would actually save us, but the upper administration costs would be removed and the facilities costs would be removed. And so we wanted to explore this idea again with the idea of making big swings to save a big amount of money because we have other priorities that we want to fund. And if we're saving 30,000, 60,000, 20,000, it's going to take forever to add that up. So on a similar vein, we talked about the preschool sites. Back in the day, 15 years ago, those were very robust programs. And they had care from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. in the evening. They had 3 different time slots. All 3 sites were full of students. And in the current climate, that's not meeting the needs of full-time working parents because they don't have care until 5 o'clock. In addition, half of their students are gone because they're in TK starting next year at 4 years old. And one of their sites is already being used for the adult school. They're short an administrator for their site. And so the idea is either to grossly expand that and really have competitive prices for those programs and expand it for full-time working parents so that it would be effective for them, maybe even expand the age, or if we don't plan on doing that, consolidate it to one site as a cost savings. And then on a similar vein, the last thing what was from us was in relation to after school. We know we're talking about charging parents $1 a day to ride the bus to an offsite after school program. But if instead we provided a competitive salary and benefits to our after school staff and we're able to fill all of those positions and had a robust after school program that could manage all of the students on a wait list and had a tier pricing system, that could be a revenue generator and our students would stay on site. And it would be with teachers who know them and their school. Students wouldn't be getting bused. They could do after school tutoring and all of those programs on site, but that's not going to happen unless we invest in the after school extended day program and pay competitively so we can fill those positions. But then it would be a revenue generator. I feel like it would be a net positive for us to invest in the people we have and expand that, and we could tier tier charge parents. So of course there's the free and reduced students would have a discounted rate. You could income qualify, but we could pay some parents, are paying a lot for outside programs. And my understanding, which I'm not going to completely share, is there's some of the outside programs that kids attend now are closing for next year. And so there's not going to be room for students there either. So those were our my little group of people. So those were the three we suggested.
Okay, that's great, Vicky. So we'll be happy to explore more. Hannah, Hannah and Beatrice had their hands raised. We have other suggestions that we're just going to mention as well. But if we could hear from Hannah and then Beatrice, that would be helpful.
Also, I don't know if Nicole wanted to add anything about the proposal before we started.
Oh, Hannah, you're part of this group.
No, I am responding as an Oxford parent.
Great. No, I mean, I think the only thing I just wanted to reiterate, a bit in what Vicky said is that, these concepts came up with the idea of big swings. There's still a big gap. And I know that, the concept of closing sites is frequently treated as a third rail. And of course, it's really difficult and it hits in a lot of different places. But the reality is, a $7 million cut across this district is going to hit in a lot of places. And so, everything should be on the table, and we should understand what the true impact could be. The savings could be big or the savings could be small, and we should just evaluate it objectively. So that's the spirit at which we wanted to propose it.
Yeah. Right. Thanks for that suggestion. Hannah, you had your hand up, or Beatrice. Beatrice and then Hannah, or Hannah and then Beatrice.
Yes, I think just like you have brought in transportation to help have a conversation about transportation, I think we should have somebody from the child development program to talk about the funding for the child development and how it comes and what it would look like and what's their status in terms of enrollment. All the programs in our city, in our county, in our state are suffering in low enrollment in childcare, both for the full fee and for the families who are certified. So there's a process to looking at reduction. There's a process for looking at how we consolidate if that's necessary. But I think you should have the people who are running the programs in child development and what it looks like for them. Because, even if you consolidate, there's programs, your CSPP program, your child development programs might not be earning their contract. And so they're going to be pinched back if they're not earning their contract. So I think it's a conversation to have with
Richards. I think you're breaking up.
I think it's important to have the people from child development here to speak to how are they doing.
I agree. And I'm a parent of 2 Oxford students and I work in early childhood. So I really, really appreciate these proposals, Vicki and Nicole. I think we need to have this conversation. No one likes school closures, but I think this is the kind of conversation we should be having because this is what's going to be needed. That said, I would just love to be part of conversations in both of those big proposals because to have an understanding of the CSPP contracts, there are options for tuition charging that can actually be beneficial for all children, especially because some of the children who are attending those programs don't have an option to attend a similar program outside of the school district. But I agree that the decreasing enrollment needs to be addressed. So for both of those options, would really love to be a thought partner.
Okay, thanks, Margot. That was Hannah. Margot has her hand raised and Matt has his hand raised. So Margot.
Hi, thank you all for your advocacy on behalf of the preschool. I'm actually a preschool employee, and a lot of the things you're saying is quite relevant to the situation. So thank you, Ms. Beatrice. I know you know very well about the funding sources and all those other things and meeting the contract. So I would just want to second what everyone said, and can we bring in Ms. Madeline so she can advocate also on our behalf. But thank you all very much for the consideration.
Okay. And then Matt, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I want to be careful about spending too much time on ideas. I think it's great that we're generating ideas. There's a lot of facilities issues that would make closing an elementary school extremely difficult. Mostly that our other elementary schools, excuse me, Yara, give me a second. Most of our other elementary schools don't have available classroom spaces as it is. Our science teachers are moving. They don't have, they're losing their flex rooms. And as we're adding all these TKs, which we're adding a significant number of TKs, the number of available spaces has gone down dramatically. Washington's and portables and so I think any analysis there really it takes like a pretty deep dive. And then I'm also just not sure, and we have data and there's been studies on like what the actual savings are when you close schools. Our enrollment is actually steady at elementary, and so unlike other districts where like their enrollment has dropped dramatically and is continuing to go down, there may not be so many. There's not going to be as many savings as you may think. Because one principal, if that's the savings, right? That's not a significant amount of money when you're talking about what we're talking about, given the trade-offs and the costs of to the community, and the issues of what happens when the other schools are bulging at their seams as a result. A lot of stuff would have to change. I'm just not sure we're in the kind of financial situation. Oakland is like short $130 million. Like that's very different, right, than being short $7 million. Of course, they're a lot bigger, but way more in proportion. So I just want to caution us, because I'm still waiting for the district to share like its cost saving proposals that have not really come up yet. So I think because of that, we're all like throwing out ideas, but there's stuff that I know the district has been discussing. What are these positions? What are all these things that have been talked about that we just haven't even heard? So like, I really want to hear that first. Like that's really important before we like go off a deep end. The political cost too of going down that route is very high, and I just don't know if it's necessary in this context.
At this point. Thanks, man. So I think it's a good forum to propose ideas, but in terms of the timeline, this is a huge lift in terms of closing. Okay, thanks. I just got a time check, so I'm going to have to push us on. But in terms of some of these ideas, we might be able to implement them for this time, but we're definitely, it's a way for us to start the discussion and looking into it further. And as Matt says, we are looking at other costs that we want to look into. Vicky, can I just hold you? I'm just going to get through this. We have some more data we want to share with you, and it's 5:15. Is it a quick question?
It is very quick. I was just going to comment on one of the other ideas. As Malcolm X PTA, I often get requests to use our space over the summer for summer camps. So I think that's an excellent suggestion, and I would love avenues for people to know how to do that. So I think that's a great suggestion. I don't know who came up with that.
Rebecca is saying, yeah, that's a great idea. There was another suggestion about selling ads on the buses. I know there are restrictions in terms of what, in terms of our buses that have to be the school bus yellow and so on. So that's something that might not go anywhere, but we'll be happy to look at the district subletting school spaces. And internally, we had come up, and again, this is not the major things that we're looking at right now, but increasing district rentals and leases. So we're working with the assistant super of facilities to look into that as well. One thing that came up when we talked about renting spaces is, remember that over the summer is when they do a deep cleaning of all our schools. So we would have to make sure that we can coordinate that cleaning as well as subleasing the other costs. Next slide. Steve. So those schools. Okay, so these are great suggestions, guys. So when we're trying to quantify them, that's great. That would be great. And Steve did point out that in the chat that they do lease their facilities out over the summer. So probably expanding that use. And along with that, probably increasing our rates, because I know we have not had a rate increase for a while. So we could do some analysis and figure out exactly how much that would generate. So I'm going to share some data points with you guys. Next slide. We're talking about furlough days, and we're bringing this back as a possible solution. And again, this will be like a last resort. We had done it before in the past in that we never needed it, but we're looking at the cost of 1 day. So if we go to the next slide, I had shared with you the cost of 1 day being $8.25 across all bargaining groups. Next slide. If we look at the impact on the unrestricted general fund, we're looking at $4.79. And then this next slide is new information. This is the cost. Somebody had suggested looking at the cost of only people whose salaries are over 125, not total cost of the district, just the salaries. So on the next slide, this is new information. So this is a cost, actually, this is a cost of 1 day for just 12-month employees. And then on the next slide, so this is $99,000, almost 100. And this is on the unrestricted general fund. And then we took this further and looked at only people earning over 125,000. So that amount on the next slide, Vivian, thank you. This is kind of hard to see. So what we got, we looked at employees earning more than 125 and employees earning less than 125. We looked at 10-month, 11-month, and 12-month employees. So this is the whole gamut. Our focus will be right here in this section. The 12-month earning more than 125. You can see we're down to 68,000. I don't think that's true, Vicky. I don't know. But anyway, I was asked to present this. So here I am presenting it.
No,
So
I was talking about getting rid of a staff development day. Yeah, sorry. I was answering Rita. Sorry.
I just had a question because I'm confused. Would a furlough day be getting rid of one of the staff development days? Like
not
if it's not a
necessarily.
teaching day.
So we looked at staff development days for the whole district. Now we're looking at people who earn over 125, which would likely be the managers. Managers are more, well, they have more flexibility in taking more days off. So we're asked to share this information, and that is what I'm bringing back. So it's not $8.25 per day when you're starting to look at only people that earn over $125,000 for 12-month employees. That amount is now $68,000 a day. This is a group that we have more flexibility with in terms of saying, well, everybody in this level can take 10 days off, as opposed to trying to impact the people who are directly in teaching and learning. Some of these, you can see that the unions that are impacted, we have a few BCCE members, management, local 21, and UBO. These are 12-month employees, so they wouldn't be our teachers. But this is just to share this information with you. If we're going down this road, these are the people that actually, looking at people earning over 125 is kind of narrowing that 800. We're now down to 68,000. Frank, yeah. Yes,
I just
Frank.
want clarification. That'd be gross pay or total pay? Total package.
The gross pay, I said, people earning the salary only 125. So we have like what their salary would be for the different groups, And then we're looking at the benefits as well when we're looking at savings. So we isolated the group looking at salaries only, and then we added in the benefits. We're not looking at people that cost the district 125. We're looking at people that earn 125, just salary only. Thanks. That's a great question. Thanks, Frank. And then, and this is, remember, for all funds. When we take a deeper dive and look at the unrestricted general fund, we're down to like $43,000 a day. So not a lot when you're looking at 825 for the entire district for one day, narrowing it down to the people 12 months earning over 125, we're down to 43,000. Any questions? Okay, next slide. We can go to the next slide. I think that's maybe a duplicate. So this section looks at our special education contract costs, and these are SPED contracts over 10,000, funded partially on resources 6,500 or the traveling, the travel resource 0240. So that one provides transportation for our SPED students. So you can see we have some sizable contracts, and these contracts provide a lot of services in terms of IEs, contracted staff. We do have a large contract with First Alt that provides transportation for our SPED students. These providers, we're taking a closer look at actually what each group does, and this is a task force that, or a group that Jill and Special Ed, they're working on, and they're actually getting additional information in terms of what these groups do and how many consultants they're working with. Next slide. These are the contracts that we had shared earlier, and the next slide, I believe, is color coded, and Emily can speak to this in terms of which ones are absolutely necessary and which ones are other contracts. So Emily, did you? Oh, Beatrice has a question.
My question is, you have a signed contract that says that they're going to be paid $31,000. Have they used that? Have the district paid $31,000, or has the district paid $31,000 and some more?
If they've paid $31,000 and some more, we have to change the PO, so the purchase order would go up. And if we haven't used all of the purchase order by, I think we have our cutoff dates sometime in April, we will close those POs and return them to the bottom line.
So wouldn't this committee, wouldn't serve us to know how many of these contracts are really using all this money or not?
Well, most of them use that and then some, especially for our SPED cases. But this is just a list of contracts. We can bring when we close the books, we can bring that information back for you, but we wouldn't know that at this point. Okay. These are POs that we have right now in the system, and that we're spending down. And we have a cutoff date in April for most sites, not SPED, in terms of when we say, well, do you guys need all of this PO for the rest of the year, or can we close POs? So, and if there are no other questions, I'm going to turn it over to Emily.
Sure. We only have a couple of minutes. It's 5:26. So I'll just say if folks have follow-up questions, this is the same list of the contracts. I've just done a preliminary set of color coding for which ones are required for operations. So things like our financial system, our HR system, the student healthcare and screenings, like our nurse contract, and our hearing screenings, eye screenings, athletics. And then I also highlighted some ones where they're big dollar amounts, but we know it's a one-time thing this year, like our federal program monitoring audit, which happens once in a blue moon. And then anything in white are ones that didn't immediately jump out to my first review, but like I said, this is just preliminary. So I'd say feel free to send an email with any follow-up questions, but I want to make sure we can also keep things moving.
Okay, thanks, Emily. So in the 3 minutes we have remaining, next slide, Vivian. We have a lot of information on our SPED IAs. This was a request that came from one of our board members, and I thought this would be interesting for you guys to see this. The question always comes up: how much is an IA from an agency cost versus an IA from the district? So on the next slide, we're looking at a list, Prime Care, SPG to Prime Care. These are the agencies that we're using that provide IAs. And as we mentioned at one point, we're only using SPG, but after the pandemic, SPG couldn't provide all the IAs that we needed. So we were using other agencies. Can somebody just hold those questions? Can I just get through this slide? So when you're looking at BUSD, we have an IA1, we have an IA2, and we have behavior intervention specialists who actually work on this, do the work. So when we're looking at the contractor IA costs per year, the average for our contractors are $70,000 or $71,000. The average that we pay a BUSD IA is $44,000. So we're looking at a difference of almost $27,000 in the cost for the year for each IA. So this was information, like I said, that was requested, and I think it's important for us to hold this information because it informs a lot of other decisions that we have to make. Next slide. This slide is a historical year-over-year look, and I think it's important for everybody to look at these numbers. This number for 18-19 actually is a little bit higher, but there is we're actually seeing 1140 1128. That's actually an increase. 1140 1128. Anyway, so we have the change in the number of students that we're serving. So we're seeing a decrease of 12, and that decrease is actually closer to 30. But what's interesting is when we're looking at our salary and benefits, you can see that there was a 39% increase and the years we're looking at is 18-19 to 24-25, a huge gap, right? But in that space, our salaries went up by 39%. Classified went up by 7, benefits went up by 38. The overall change for salary and benefits is 32%. But we must remember that during that time, we had negotiated increases of about 28%. So the drivers that impact our SPED program, almost $8 million of that from 18-19 are negotiated increases. And that needs to be an important part of the discussion when we're looking at other cost drivers for SPED. We looked at NPA and NPSs, which is where we tend to focus. We do have a 52% in our NPAs, and then we do have a 27% increase in our NPSs, and we're right at 530. I'm just going to finish this section. And then you can see overall other expenses, all our expenses went up by 33 overall, including salaries. So remember the main driver, we have a 28% salary increase, and that's a negotiated increase. We do have an increase of $10 million for that period for the contribution, but remember a lot of that driver is actually salary and benefits. Matt, can I take one quick question?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that this doesn't look at the revenue side of things and the state.
No, so all right, let me put a pause in what you're saying. If you click on the link, it has the detailed information of the revenue and expenses as well. So I'm encouraging you guys to open this link. And if it doesn't allow access, I will fix that, Vicky, and share that with the team. And we have another slide as well that groups this a little bit easier. a little bit easier for you guys to
Well,
understand.
yeah, Pauline, can you put in parentheses like link? Because sometimes you don't know if it's like a title and just a nice funky color, you know? So, yeah.
It's a link.
Yeah.
It's a link.
No,
Okay.
well, okay.
Sorry, what were you saying, Regina?
Referring to
link, say link to?
Yeah,
Okay.
you're referring to year over year. That's the link, correct?
Yeah,
Okay,
that
so in
funny
parentheses
color.
and small, you can write link. I don't know, just in case you get
All
this
right,
question.
I'm going to push us on. Push us on. Next slide. So we have some observations here, reminding people that yes, there was an increase in salaries. The interesting thing was that certificated salaries outpaced the salary increases, and that's because we actually increased staffing, and that may have to do with caseloads or other negotiated items. And of course, you can see the opposite is true for classified salaries. Their change is less than the cost of the increases, of the salary increases. So let's, when we're looking at the detailed maths, when you open that slide, and I'll make sure you have access. Yes, we're impacted by the revenue as well over that period, but at the same time, we're looking at the cost drivers on the previous slide. 3 quick questions. I can stay late if anybody else wants to, but Nicole, then Frank, and one other person has raised their hand.
Great, thanks so much. So, one thing that would also be super helpful to see here, unless it's on the other link, is that what is the cost, the salary and benefits fully loaded cost increase for other hard to fill positions in the district over the same time period? Is that on par, or what's the difference between SPED versus another hard to fill? We had a very hard time keeping our SPED staff over those years. And so, our salaries are probably not outrageous in comparison. So does that make sense, Pauline? Versus
no, I don't understand what you're saying. Somebody said a finger. So you're saying that there are others hard to fill. So you're saying we're increasing salaries because they're hard to fill?
Well, I'm saying, so that chart shows it's 28%, I think.
Can you go back?
Salaries and benefits, total salaries and benefits there for this right there. Okay, 28% increase there, right? The negotiate or whatever. Okay, 32%. That's the number I'm probably looking at. Total 32% salary and benefits increase between 2018 and 2025. So I'm wondering, for the rest of the district, what has been that salary and benefit increase as well?
Yeah,
28%.
So everybody else got salary increases, but we're not sure. You're saying the change. Well, I'm only showing SPED. We could pull that information, but that would be very time consuming. This is already information that we have that we share in our budget book every budget period. So this is just a condensed version of what we already share in our book. So
I totally hear it. I couldn't say that 32% over that time period is a lot or a little without knowing what the salary is.
Right. We're not saying whether it's we're just saying 32% was a change. 28% of that 32% is caused by negotiated increases. It's not like we're just paying salaries. We had negotiated salary increases during that time, which is the main driver. What the interesting thing is that certificated went up by 39%, whereas the classified went up only by 7%. So there's some sort of a disconnect in terms of the change. And I don't know if it's number of staff or whatever. This is just a very global, quick look at our SPED performance year over year. And of course, we're also looking at the cost of our MP and our MPSs. And of course, other costs, there wasn't a significant increase. So this is just a year over year. And this was actually a request from a board member as well. And that's why I'm sharing it with the group. Frank, then Matt, and and then Vicky.
Yeah, you just spoke on it. That was my question. 39, that number sticks out. 39 and 7% for classified. I'm assuming, but I guess I want clarification. Is that because we're not putting in the contractors who are doing classified work? So I assume because there's a lot of vacancies and we have lots of contractors doing this work, if they were filled, that number would be probably up there with certificated.
It could be.
I don't know, Captain Obvious here. I'm not sure if that's a question.
Yeah, that could possibly be. Or so we said the main drivers in the last column is either raises and increased staffing because it's outpacing the 28%. And the fact that this is only 7, it's raises, but then there's a decrease in staffing. And that's just a logical conclusion looking at the numbers. So we're not saying positions. Oh, all right. Bye, Jill. Bye, everybody. We have to go. So Matt, you had a question, and then Vicky.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a couple clarifications. Our salary increases match all of our neighboring districts or are less. We are still last or second to last or third to last in the county. So without seeing the revenue side of this, which I know we can't click on quite yet, the state was giving more money during this time, and that money was going towards salaries. Everyone gets the same salary increases. So in theory,
Right.
classified and certificated should be pretty close, right? And so Frank is correct that what's not on the books, it's just off the books, is the contractors is not showing up here. So it's just a kind of an incomplete.
Well, yeah, the contractors are showing up. They're NPAs and NPSs.
No, sorry, not the MPS and MPA, not the MPSs, but you know, what about where does SPG fall in here?
NPAs.
Can I just clarify for everyone, a non-public, NCS is non-public school. We don't hire anybody from there. That's where we place students. Non-public agency is where we hire staff.
Right.
Yeah, so if you were to take the 4 million on the MPA and add it to the classified,
they're not all IAs and they're not all classified staff.
I understand, but I'm saying this is where the missing pieces are, right? About why those numbers don't match.
Yeah, I don't think I'm trying to get an explanation as to why they don't match. It's just information for you guys to.
Yeah, I just think
look
it's.
at.
I'm not. I know you're not giving an explanation. I'm giving an explanation because the group asked for this information, and it's a little bit misleading to only show the to basically say, well, it's increased staffing and raises. Yes, that's true, but you're missing. It's like we're missing like the whole picture here, and so we won't draw the right conclusions, I think, without the rest of the information, which is the revenue side, which I know you have, and we'll click on and see, and also looking at the comparisons with the other districts.
Right. So the point that I want to make, and I am sharing this information to say that when people are looking at general fund contribution going up by 33%, you have to factor in the fact that we have given 28% in salary and raises. So we can't just look at NPAs and NPSs at other costs, which is what tends to happen. The narrative has got to include salary and benefits. 28% of the cost increase is driven by salary and benefits. Yes, we have increases in NPAs and NPSs. So what I'm reminding everybody in this group is that when we're looking at all of these contracts, and we're going to be taking a deeper dive on the contracts, remember that all of these increases also match the salary increase, and we only give raises when we have the money to do it. So I'm not sure what point is trying to be made there. Vicky, you had a question?
I do, and maybe it's for Samantha. My question's actually about furloughs. I just, you mentioned the amount of money for benefits and salary or benefits. And so if we do a furlough day, like, isn't benefits a fixed cost? And do we actually not pay into benefits for that day? I mean, wouldn't we have to pay that full amount anyways? So I'm not quite sure how that's calculated. And maybe it's just not my understanding of it.
So if I go on a furlough, I am not working for that day. I don't get paid for that day. I don't incur benefits for that day. The district says,
is that like your health care? I mean, because don't you have to?
No, it's your statutory. So every person, when you get paid, we have to pay our share for your retirement, for all of these government taxes. So it's not
okay, so it's not like healthcare or accruing vacation or sick time or whatever. Okay, it's these other taxes or things. Okay.
The majority of that is like the STRS and PERS.
Okay.
So,
okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions really quickly? So we'll be happy to bring back some more explanation about SPED. I'm sharing this information to make sure everybody understands the full picture and not just zero in on providers. Salary and benefits do play a major part. And yes, there are revenues as well, but we're not trying to say salaries went up higher or whatever. It's a long span. We have a lot of information. We also have a year over year by year that looks at the changes. That might be helpful as well, and we can put it in the slide deck. Any other Vivian, I think that was the end of the slides, right? We did want to talk about next slide. I think we wanted to clarify the dates that we had some conflicts. Vivian? Is Vivian?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay.
April 16th, that might be a 3 to 4:30 meeting. April 23rd, 4 to 5:30. May 14th, 4 to 5:30. And then we'll come back with the rest. The Tuesday, the 27th, and June 11th is the 4 to 5:30.
Oh, we don't have June 11th on her. Oh. All right. So thanks everybody. We will resume this discussion on April 16th, and by then we will have additional suggestions. And thanks for everybody's participation today. I appreciate it. And thanks for the discussion.
You mean March 26th, right?
Yeah, March 26th. I wish it was April. I wish it was
Yeah.
April. I'm tired.
You don't want to see us for another month.
Anika will be back. So I will have to be fighting. Oh, I'm kidding. All right. So somebody is joining, but we're ending. Hollis Williams. Don't know what that's about. So thanks, guys. And we'll follow up on some of the discussions that we talked about that were presented. Natasha is here. Hi, Natasha. So, okay, guys, I'll talk to everybody later. And thanks for the discussion, and thanks for everybody participating. So, appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Polly. Can I ask one favor? My small brain has a hard time remembering all the different pieces of the math, but it wants to. Is it possible to like somehow put it on one slide of like our target is 7.5, and so far we got this one and this one and this one and this one?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah,
that'd be great.
Yeah,
thank you. It would help me understand.
And this is where we are. Yeah, yeah, it's challenging, and we're working on the second interim, and so far the target has remained unchanged. So we're working towards the same target. So
okay. Thank you guys so much.
Okay, thanks, guys. All right.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.